Greetings, intrepid viewers. Dr. Lena here, your friendly sociologist from Australia, having a look at the demented hellscape that has transpired in the last week, because it affects everybody. And I thought, where am I going to start this video? And I thought, let's start with the world, i.e., US foreign policy. So here we have Canada remaining staunch, bless Canada, true north and fierce. Love that. Then we have Greenland, who were not fooled for 1 minute about Usha Vance going to watch the puppy dogs. No. And they said, as one, we feel bullied. This action is really aggressive, sending this delegation. There's been no invitation, and we'd rather you just fuck off. Right? So Greenland stood up. And then we have the EU, who, when you think about the EU, it was starting to fracture and weaken before the Yeti got back in. Now they've had huge meetings with 27 countries, including Canada, about the EU itself rearming on the biggest scale since World War II going on. And then you have the BRICS countries. Now, the original BRICS, I'll just remind you, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they've now got other allies that comprise 40% of the world's population. Well, of course, the Yeti went out and spat in their face and kept changing the tariffs. It went from 25% to 100% to 150%, at which point the BRIC nations said, you know what? We're going to reduce our dependence on the US dollar and start trading in our own currencies. Is that easy? No. Is it the best thing in everyone's best interest? Maybe not. But everyone is so outraged and upset that this cartoon of a creature can cause such destabilization in the world. So, on top of that, of course, we had Signalgate running through all of that. The world is wide-eyed and incredulous. And first time round, Trump's first term, people were going, oh, it's America, they're so powerful, we'll have to hunker down and endure it. This time, no. So it's becoming a pariah state by the hour. And then Signalgate, right? So I'm sure you're all across it. So let's just recap on the major highlights, shall we? So here we have. It's hard to know where to start. 18 people, some say 19, some say 17. They don't actually know because there could have been some people on there who didn't contribute. So, or even that's up in the air. Then you had Steve Witkoff, I don't know his actual title, but he's high up in the cartoon cabinet. And he was in Russia while Signalgate was unfolding. And everybody knows that if you're in Russia as a Westerner, you are under surveillance. Like everybody knows that, a 12-year-old child would know this, So he was being surveilled. And then you have Tulsi Gabbard. And when she was being grilled by Congress, and someone said to her, and where were you when this text exchange was going on? She said, I don't know. To which the questioner said, what do you mean you don't know? Oh, I don't know, somewhere in Southeast Asia. I could find out, she said. I could look at my schedule and find out. She didn't know what country she was in 2 days before. Awesome. I mean, this is delirious and irresponsible stuff of the first order. But then we had Joe Kent. He's the director of the National Counterterrorism Centre. Big job, you would think, but he hasn't been confirmed yet. Should not have been given a clearance, has not been given a clearance, but he was on there. Come on, Joe, come on down. It's Mickey Mouse stuff. If it wasn't so serious, it would be side-splittingly funny. And what else have they talked about on Signal, or other things, just beyond the beyond, you know? And look, maybe heads will roll, maybe they won't. Maybe Hegseth will go, maybe he won't, maybe Mike Walsh will go, maybe he won't. But you've got no confidence in the Yeti's appointments. He'll probably get someone from SeaWorld to run the Pentagon. Doesn't mean there'd be anybody any better. So let's just have a look at the fallout from Signalgate, because actually the more people find out, the worse it is. Whether there are other signal gates out there and so on. Let's have a look. Oh, and the other thing, what's his face? Pete Hegseth, it has transpired, has not one, but multiple Russian email addresses. I kid you not. You can't actually believe it. So let's have a look at Signalgate. Let's go down. So, medical forecast. Oh dear. I'll pull these out in a minute. So the thing is, dear possums, they actually don't get how serious it is because they live under mushrooms. They don't get it. So they're just forging on, right? If we lie low, it'll blow over. How about the President of the United States, when asked about this, kept saying, I haven't heard about it, I don't know. Why don't journalists push back and say, well, sir, there must be a real problem with your chain of command if you don't know it? But they never do. Anyway, so their thinking is let it blow over. Malheureusement, for them, the light is going to be luminous. We are going to find, I think, not just more about this encounter. There will be more. There will be more. But this is what I mean by they don't get it. Oh, what's the problem? They actually don't even have the grace to be embarrassed, let alone mortified, or resign in eternal shame. No, 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 no. What's the problem? Oh, it's pathetic. Let's have a look at, what are these cards? The prediction deck. They're such fun. They're not real tarot cards, but they're brilliant for add-ons for this sort of scenario from the predictions deck. Let's have a look. Well, I think a lot's going to be playing out here. Planned outcome. Okay. I think what this is referring to in the planned outcome, I think it's not planned by the USA. I think this could be almost, I've got to be careful what I say on YouTube, but let us say some sort of plan by another party whose initials might be VP, right? This is because of all the interference there. They'll keep spinning fake news, and social media is going to play a role both ways, I think, in terms of informing us all about horrendous things that are happening behind the scenes, but also in right-wing echo chambers. I'm just going to actually pull a clarifier on social media itself, because the world is run by social media now. It sure as hell isn't being run by legacy media. Social media, and by that I would include podcasts. So let's just have a clarifier or two on social media in this context, Signalgate. Oh. don't even know what that card is. Oh, okay. Mosquito airborne. Now, this could be bad about people's health as everything is being rolled back in terms of health, but I think it's a symbolic mosquito airborne because look at the next card, drone strike. So I would say Putinska will be taking advantage of this, and also it's possible China will be taking advantage of America being distracted in a major way. Now, next on the list, in the good news file, okay, we had that marvelous win in Pennsylvania. James Malone in Lancaster County. Last time a Dem had a Senate seat there was 1889. This is a bellwether. I'm loving this. But also Celeste Malloy, she's a congresswoman from Utah, and she's Latter-day Saint and all of that. But this is what she said during the week to Congress. If we don't get the executive branch under control, we are moving towards authoritarianism. That's from a Mormon in Utah. And then we have the election coming up in Florida. I think his name's Josh Wheel. He's a public teacher. Will we have a look? It's hard to say because one has very little confidence in the mechanisms of voting. Let's just say that. So Josh Wheel, will he make it? Oh, God. Please, 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 please. Oh, let's have a look. Well, let's look at Florida. Okay, Florida, Florida, Florida. Come on down, possums. Queen of Cups, the world. A lot of female energy here. Could be all those repressed Republicans, but we won't get into that. Okay, so I'll do the world card first. Now, this is my card of diversity, other cultures, ethnicities, and ways of seeing the world. And as we know, Florida has been doing all these horrendous things that was voted for by so many Latinos who are now weeping at the border. Okay, including Cubans, and they've always been the darlings of the Republican Party, right-wing Cubans. It's their bread and butter. So I think this is about Florida and then about Josh Wheel. This is the thing. I'll return to DeSantis in just a moment. But the first card out was the Queen of Cups. In this sense, what Lady G calls the cup of abominations being revealed. Normally, for normal people, this is a lovely card. However, it's also a very emotional card. Look at all that water. So I think Florida's on the turn, but not yet. I don't think he's going to quite make it because of the system. It's like Beto. Remember? Beto went to every county in Texas. Don't tell me or any of you guys that he didn't win for governor. It's like that. He should win, but perhaps he doesn't. God, I'd love to be wrong. But it's in progress now. It's getting bigger. The movement is getting bigger. So even if he doesn't fall over the line this time, it's going to be very different down the track. So that's something. So let's talk about Ron DeSantis, he of the white cowboy boots. Now, apart from being a repulsive human in his own right, And as if he, knowing his state, like he does, to then think it's all right to do these cruel and inhumane deportations, not enough. He, of course, underestimated the agricultural workers leaving in vast numbers too, but he has the solution: child labour. He seriously wants to introduce child labour. So he's pushing forward this legislation to use children to replace farm workers. But here's the thing. They are to be allowed to work overnight. This is teenagers at best. I assume he's talking, when he talks about minors, I assume he's talking about teenagers. He could be talking about 6- and 8-year-olds. Who knows? Put them down the coal mines, you know. They can work overnight, and he goes the extra mile here, eliminate the requirement for them to have meal breaks. What sort of medieval serfdom do these people want? What? It's like, oh, look, I digress. Let's go back to what are they actually aiming for? Now, Trump seems to admire McKinley, who he wouldn't have heard about till a couple of years ago, in the sense that the 1890s, the robber barons, oh, that sounds cool. You know, the problem is, and I was just watching a historian who's also an economist talk about this last night. He said in the 1890s, while the great names of American industry were making a fortune on the backs of workers from all over the world, so you had a built-in slave population that was augmented by poverty-stricken immigrants from everywhere, and including the Chinese, who were sent to blow up rocks before the railways could go through and things, because they were considered the most disposable of the new workforce. You know, let's just look at a bit of history. Okay, so what this guy was saying, that time there was enormous wealth made by a very small number of people. It was accompanied by mass unemployment that in turn led to mass protests, even though the states were more isolated from each other and the populations were smaller. The protests in turn led to the new labour movement in the early 1900s. And I think we're doing this historical revisit here. I think by them doing this foul, inexcusable, globally reprehensible stuff like bringing back child labour, let them do their worst, because people need to see it, need to feel it, to react against it. We've got to keep an optimistic thing going here with this, you know, like it's insane. Now, speaking of insane, Arkansas, led by that bastion of truth, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Daddy had the job for years, so now I've got it. Okay. Where do they dream up these things? The state has introduced a law, which will probably be passed, to make it an offence for a hairdresser to give any person a haircut that could be deemed to be trans. Like, what is a trans haircut? I mean, plenty of people decide to have different haircuts for a whole range of reasons. The only other country at this point that I know of that stipulates what haircut you can have is North Korea. You can choose between one of two haircuts. Interesting. Right? So this thing, and it's punishable by a $10,000 to $10 million fine, and this extends to teachers or anyone else who could be seen as giving affirmation to a trans person. How do they dream this up? Yeah, and yet They don't see the contradictions about freedom at all, at all, at all. I, it's so weird. Let's have a quick look at. No, I don't even want to go near it. It's too awful. It is just too awful. Now, while we're in the trans space for a moment, I'm sure you're all aware of Vivian Wilson, who the muskrat refers to as his dead son, who is his trans daughter, who's very much alive and a very bold, brave, and wonderful 20-year-old. She has unleashed on him, and she said, in a quiet way, she's not strident, she has said, look, he was an absent father, and I didn't know about she knew about her set of siblings, but all the half siblings going forward, the other 9, she said, I only heard about by following drag queens on Reddit. That's how she heard about her other siblings. Can you believe this man? See, you've got this disconnect. Here's another rant thing. On the one hand, you've got, as I see it, 3 ideological things going on simultaneously. You've got Trump as, let's say, the playboy, you know, just like to be a rich guy, play golf all day, feel up the female workers, but classic playboy, shallow thing. Then you've got the evangelical flat earthers who want to close the Smithsonian Institution because God made the world in 6 days before he lay down for a rest. There were no dinosaurs. Okay, wanting to take things back to the 1600s. Then you have the alpha tech bros who wanted to be 2050 and we've wrecked this planet, so let's go to Mars. And for some reason, that seemed to be twinned with this deep misogyny. So it's all about repressing women, whether it's the playboy, whether it's the old flat earth Christians, or the tech bros, right? All of it is anti-women, anti-gay, anti-everything except each other. Yeah. Ugh. Now, before we go forward, let's talk about Pam Bondi. She's a strange one, isn't she? She looks about 12. She looks like she's an extra on the set of Baywatch or something. She just looks, this sun-bleached bimbo. She can't be because she's worked in law for quite a few years, must have a good surgeon, but she's weird, right? She's totally weird. And she's the one who's signing off on, let's send everyone to jail. I want to have a personal look at Pam Bondi. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at Pam Bondi. Then I'll do some cards for you. Now, by the way, everyone, please like and subscribe. I always forget to mention anything, but subscribing is free, absolutely free, and it helps the channel. I'd appreciate it. And because I only post every 3 days or so, I'm sure some of you miss things because I get comments saying, oh, I'm so glad you're back. So subscribe and then you'll get the notifications. So we're looking at Pam Baywatch Bondi. Let's have a look here. Have a look here. She's a strange one. Yeah, there she is. Look at this. Here's something with her. She looks all blonde and fluffy, but there's a dark side. to Pam Bondi. Right? Knight of Swords, here she is. And superficially, she is fearless because she obviously doesn't care about the future in the sense. This is the impulsive knight, the one who doesn't weigh up the risk. She's totally invested. She's going to go all the way. All right. She's going to be tougher than the boys, just to make the point, right? Fred Flintstone. She'll stop at nothing. She's in the thrall of the Yeti here. She is doing his bidding on the one hand, but she's got her own sort of agenda outside of that because she does know he's actually, as I've said before, a chimpanzee on roller skates. She does know that, but she's using it for her own advancement somehow. Maybe she thinks if the US degenerates into an authoritarian state, she could be in a massive position of oligarchic power or something. She's sharing his agenda, but not, she's got her own agenda, and that is secret, but she'll stop at nothing to get there. So look at this. Out of 5 cards, 3 are majors. She is a powerhouse. I hate to admit it, and it's not what the country needs. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Let's just have a look with these other cards because they're fun on Pam Bondi. It's good news that a judge somewhere has said those texts need to be preserved. Now, from what I understand, because now we're all authorities on Signal after the last week, the messages disappear at a certain point, but I'm sure the Atlantic editor and others would have screenshot them, everything. So there will be a record, hopefully when the time comes and there's going to be the massive trial going forward in the future. Pam Bondi. I'll just pull one card for her. Surprise attack. I think this is in legal terms. She's going to do something truly, truly frightful. Not a surprise, I say, so be prepared because the Attorney General is a massively important role, which we knew from Bill Barr, who single-handedly dismantled the Mueller report in a couple of sentences. We also know it from Merrick Garland, who failed to speak. And here we have a surprise attack on the rights of Americans here. So be prepared. Now, let's just, to finish off, I think the veterans are key to what happens going forward. It should not be surprising the number of them who say, I've voted for him 3 times, but I didn't think he'd do it. I think it's so appalling that they represent the cruelty of this administration. So not only the firing of 80,000 positions, which is in transit, not all 80,000 have gone yet, but they will be very soon. They've stopped volunteers going into vet hospitals. And I remember saying this about a month ago or something, and people said, no, they haven't, they're still going in. Well, now they've stopped them in a lot of places. But this is an administration that has stopped food banks. It's this cruelty and stopping the phone lines for people on Social Security. You close the doors of the office and say to people, but you must prove to us you're who you say you are, and then there's no way to get through on the phone or go there. I mean, people are going to be cut off by the million. But don't forget tomorrow, Saturday night, 7 p.m. EST. It's our special show on Hogarth's channel tomorrow night. Why is it special? Because it's the major eclipse. We think all this stuff's been full on. We've got to talk about what's happening and how to handle it. And there's 4 of us on that show, and it's also live. So join us 7 p.m. EST Saturday night. And after that, we're going to move to another night. But come to that one because it's going to be special. All right. Now, I'd like to finish with ways to handle this deep anxiety and horror, how to stay sane in the face of the gaslighting. This community's been great. It's been absolutely great. It's a privilege for me to do this work. I thank you all. It's amazing. So let's have a look here. We're definitely at a turning point in history, and those are never comfortable. Revolutions aren't comfortable. Sometimes they're necessary. Okay. I also want to do a big shout out too, because the Dems, as we've talked about endlessly, need a reinvigoration like the Tea Party did from the inside. They pushed out and took over. I think the progressives are starting to do that, and there's fabulous people in the second tier of the Dems, and I think it's going to be a powerhouse going forward. I mean, this is one of the upsides. Okay, this is advice for you guys and me. Okay. Oh. All right, now, this sort of brings together what we've been talking about in the chat. Speak your truth and hold your truth. And at some point, the sword of truth pierces the crown of the deluded Yeti. Hold that thought. Be out and be active, but remember with this Knight of Wands, the horse is being reined in. So you've got to consider your own personal safety, depending on your ethnicity, depending on where you live. There are many factors to consider here. So it's like proceed with caution. Be very careful. I think we got this last time and we talked about getting burner phones if you go to protests and so forth. April 5th, big protest. So keep this in mind, right? Really think about it ahead of time. Who are you going with? What are your backup plans? How are you getting there? How are you getting home? What's the safest way to do that? Making sure lots of people know where you are and have them pre-booked in your phone. Now, we always, in political tarot, we underestimate the high priestess and we tend to go, hidden agendas. Well, now their agenda actually isn't hidden anymore. And so a deeper aspect of the high priestess is all the deep feminine knowledge and wisdom that goes back into the mists of time, right? Before any of the patriarchal religions, before any of it. And the feminine principle, of course, embraces men who are loving and kind and genuinely protect others. So the guys in this chat I know are totally the best of modern masculinity. So bless you guys. So this is there. Knight of Pentacles. We fixate on Pentacles being money, but it also represents our values. So this is the Knight standing still, can't be. See, this one's the moving forward, like protests and writing to people and being active and engaged and stuff. This is standing firm in your values as sane, decent, thinking, caring Americans, along with everyone else of other nationalities who are watching this. Okay, we've always got to remember to keep those values. And I would say, as an Australian, we've got two, I consider, weak leaders who are going to an election. Ugh, one is worse than the other, which is always the case, but two wishy-washy leaders. I'd like to see, like Canada, where they come together and stand at the same microphone and we say, regardless of what else we disagree on, we refuse to be bullied in this moment in time. I would love to see that. And I'm not alone in that. So, Albo, if you're listening, Voldemort, if you're listening, we need to see more bipartisanship like is happening in Canada. Suddenly, decades of interprovincial staff is being swept away for the common good, you know. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's just radical, not in the sense of left and right, just radical. It's really huge change we're all facing. So lots of love. See you next time. Join us on Hogarth's channel tomorrow. I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.